Hello everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video we are going to discuss about normalization in machine learning. So when we talk of normalization, it is one of the most frequently used data preparation technique which helps us to change the values of numeric columns in the dataset to use a common scale. We know that normalization is no mandate for all the datasets available in machine learning, but it is used whenever the attributes of the dataset have different ranges. It helps to enhance the performance and reliability of a machine learning model. Like if we can say it is a scaling technique in machine learning applied during the data preparation to change the values of numerical columns in the dataset so that they can be used on a common scale. It is necessary for all the data sets in model to be required only when the features of machine learning models have different ranges. So in that case we need normalization. Fine. So when we talk of normalization, which is a very important fact to be known, so we should also know when should we use normalization. So normalization is a transformation technique that helps to improve the performance as well as the accuracy of your model. So we need to use it during the pre-processing task. So when we talk of normalization, basically normalization can be done in one of the two ways. The first one is min-max scaling, which says that if there is no scaling, we have already knowing that the min-max scaling method helps the dataset to shift and rescale the data values of their attributes so that they will range between 0 and 1. Another one is standardization scaling, which is also known as Z-score normalization, in which the values are centered around the mean with the standard deviation, which means that the attributes become 0 and the resultant distribution has a standard unit of deviation. Now as we have understood about the normalization, we should know one more common terminology about standardization also. So we have standardization and we have normalization. So we have two techniques of data preparation. Now let's understand what is the difference between these two. So when we talk of normalization, it is a technique that uses min and maximum values for scaling the model. On the other hand, standardization technique uses mean and standard deviation. So we can say over here about these two techniques. This is min max is under normalization and standardization is under the technique that uses standard deviation and scaling of the model for scaling of the model. So normalization is helpful when the features are of different scales. On the other hand, standardization is helpful when the mean of a variable is set to 0 and the standard deviation is set to 1. In normalization, the scale values will range between 0 and 1 and -1 and 1, whereas scaling value in standard deviation is lying between infinity. And talking about normalization, it got affected by outliers, whereas the standardization is not affected by the outliers. So we have scikit in Python that learn provides a transform called min-max scaler for normalization, whereas scikit-learn for in machine learning in Python it provides standard deviation methodology. So scaling is also called scaling normalization, whereas the standard deviation is making the standard for the sets using standard deviation. Now we should also know when should we use normalization and when to use standardization. So which is a suitable for machine learning model that normalization is standardization is a challenging question. This is a big confusion among all the data science and the machine learning engineers. So normalization is a transformation technique that helps to improve the performance as well as the accuracy of your model. Whereas the normalization of a machine learning model is useful when you don't know the feature distribution exactly. So we can also say that the feature distribution of data does not follow a Gaussian, that is a bell curve distribution. So in that case, we proceed with the normalization. So it is useful for data having scaling variables like we talk about KNN, artificial neural networks. Then we have normalization. And about standardization in machine learning model is useful when you are exactly aware of the features of distribution of data. In other words, your data follows a Gaussian distribution. However, this doesn't have to be necessarily true. Unlike normalization, standardization doesn't necessarily have a bounding range. So if you have outliers in your data, they will not be affected by the standardization. So we say when we have outliers in the data set, then we should go with min-max scaling, that is normalization. And if we don't have outliers, then we can proceed with the standardization. So that's all about normalization. So thanks for watching the video, and for any further queries you can write in the chat box.